Hello, I'm Philippa Gregory. You're about to listen to an extract from my new book, The White Queen, read by Amelia Fox. The White Queen is the story of the Plantagenets, the ruling family before the Tudors came to England. The novel's told in the voice of Elizabeth Woodville, Edward IV's beautiful, manipulative, highly skilled political queen. I hope you enjoy it.
When the sun is setting and the boys are saying their evening prayers, blonde heads on their clasped hands at the foot of their trestle beds, my mother leads the way out of the front door of the house and down the winding footpath to where the bridge, a couple of wooden planks, crosses the River Tove. At the other side she puts her hand on a great ash tree, and I see there is a dark thread of silk wound around the rough-grained wood of the thick trunk. What is this? "Reel it in," is all she says. "Reel it in, a foot or so every day." I put my hand on the thread and pull it gently. It comes easily. There is something light and small tied on the far end. I cannot even see what it might be, as the thread loops across the river into the reeds, in deep water on the other side. "Magic," I say flatly. My father has banned these practices in his house. The law of the land forbids it. It is death to be proved as a witch. "Magic," my mother agrees, untroubled. "Powerful magic, for a good cause. Well worth the risk. Come every day and reel it in, a foot at a time." "What will come in?" She smiles at me and puts her hand on my cheek. "Your heart's desire. I didn't raise you to be a poor widow." At noon the next day I am in my ordinary gown, seated in my privy chamber, when the girl comes in a rush to say that the king is riding down the road towards the hall. I go to him with a smile, and he greets me with a courteous kiss on the cheek, and I feel the warmth of his skin, and see through my half-closed eyes the softness of the hair that curls at the nape of his neck. When he looks at me, I recognize desire in his face. The conversation at dinner is stilted, as it must be. My family is deferential to this new King of England, but there is no denying that we threw our lives and our fortune into battle against him, and my husband was not the only one of our household and affinity who did not come home. But this is how it must be in a war that they have called the Cousins' War, since brother fights against brother, and their sons follow them to death. King Edward is easy. He is charming to my mother and amusing to my brothers Anthony and John, and then Richard, Edward, and Lionel join us later. 3 of my younger sisters are home, and they eat their dinner in silence, wide-eyed in admiration, but too afraid to say a word. "And now to business," the king says to my father. "Lady Elizabeth tells me that she has lost her dower lands." My father nods. "It's a bad business. I'm sorry to trouble you with it, but we have tried to reason with my Lord Warwick, without result. They were confiscated after—" He clears his throat. "After St. Albans, you understand. Her husband was killed there. Even if you regard her husband as a traitor, she herself is innocent, and she should at least have her widow's jointure." The king turns to me. "You have written down your title and the claim to the land?" I give him the paper, and he glances at it. "I shall speak to Sir William Hastings, and ask him to see that this is done. He will represent you to my Lord Warwick. He will be your advocate." "You are gracious, sire," my father says easily, and nods to me. Obediently I rise from my chair and curtsy low. "I thank you. This means everything to me." "Will you show me around the garden before I leave, Lady Elizabeth?" "I shall be honoured." My father opens his mouth to offer his company, but my mother says quickly, "Yes, do go, Elizabeth." And the two of us slip from the room without a chaperone. It is warm in the early summer sunshine as we come from the darkness of the hall, and he offers me his arm, and we walk down the steps to the garden, arms linked in silence. "I have only a little time," he says. "Somerset and Percy are mustering. Henry himself will come out of his castle and lead his army. The Queen must be planning to land an army of Frenchmen in their support." "I shall pray for you." He pauses, and I stop with him and look up at him. It is very quiet, but for a single bird singing. His face is grave. "May I send a page boy to bring you to me tonight? I have a longing for you, Lady Elizabeth Grey, that I have never felt for any woman before. Will you come to me?" I shake my head. "Forgive me, Your Grace, but I am a woman of honour." "I may never ask you again. God knows I may never ask any woman again. There can be no dishonour in this. I could die next week." "Even so." "Are you not lonely?" he asks. I can feel the warmth of his breath on my cheek. "And do you feel nothing for me? Can you say you don't want me? Just once. Don't you want me now?" My gaze lingers on his mouth, then I meet his eyes. "Dear God, I have to have you," he breathes. "I cannot be your mistress. I would rather die than dishonour my name." "But you do want me." "I should not tell you." He waits. "I should not tell you how much." "Then you will come?" "No." "Then must I go? Must I leave you? May I not?" He leans his face towards me, and I raise my face to him. His kiss is as gentle as the brush of a feather on my soft mouth. "Lady Elizabeth, I swear it, I have to—" I take a step back in this delicious dance. "If only—" I say. "I'll come tomorrow, in the evening, at sunset. Will you meet me where I first saw you, under the oak tree? I would say goodbye before I go north. I have to see you again, Elizabeth. If nothing more, I have to." I nod in silence and watch him turn on his heel and stride back to the house. At dinner the next day there is something of a family conference. The King has sent a letter to say that his friend Sir William Hastings will support my claim to my house and land at Bradgate, and I can be assured that I will be restored to my fortune. My father is pleased, but all my brothers, Anthony, John, Richard, Edward, and Lionel, are united in suspicion and the alert pride of boys. "He did not take her lands off Warwick for charity. He will want payment." "A hard man to refuse. I would think, Elizabeth, that you might feel compromised. I would fear that you would feel under obligation to him." I shrug. "Not at all. I have nothing more but my own again. I asked the King for justice, and I received it as I should, as any supplicant should, with right on their side." "Nonetheless, if he sends, you will not go to court," my father says. "This is not a holy man like the blessed King Henry." "Nor soft in the head like blessed King Henry," I think, but aloud I say, "Of course, father, whatever you command." My mother drops her head to hide her smile. She is the daughter of Burgundy, the descendant of Melusina, the water witch. She has never thought herself obliged to do anything in her life. She would never think that her daughter was obliged to anything. "You want to go to court? Do you admire him, despite everything?" Anthony asks me quietly as my other brothers scatter from the room. He is King of England. Of course I will go if he invites me. What else?
Perhaps because Father just said you were not to go.
I shrug.
How else can a poor widow make her way in a wicked world? He teases me.
Indeed.
You would be a fool to sell yourself cheap.
I look at him from under my eyelashes. I don't propose to sell myself at all. I am not a yard of ribbon. I am not a leg of ham. I am not for sale to anyone. At sunset I am waiting for him under the oak tree, hidden in the green shadows. I am relieved to hear the sound of only one horse on the road. If he had come with a guard, I would have slipped back to my home, fearing for my own safety. I cannot trust him. However heart-stopping his smile, and however honest his eyes, however much I think of him as a boy fired to greatness by his own ambition, I cannot trust him. But he looks like a knight in a dark forest when he pulls up his horse and jumps down in one easy movement.
You came.
I cannot stay long.
I am so glad you came at all.
He loops the reins of his horse over a branch of the tree and slides his hand around my waist.
Sweet lady, will you take off your headdress and let down your hair?
It is the last thing I thought he would demand of me, and I am shocked into instant consent. He unties his cloak and swings it on the ground at my feet.
Sit with me,
he commands, though he means lie with me, and we both know it. He strokes my loosened hair, and his fingers penetrate deeper and deeper until he is caressing my neck. Gently he bears down on me, pushing me down so I am beneath him.
Elizabeth.
I told you no.
You met me.
You asked me. Shall I go now?
No. Stay, stay, don't run away. I swear I will not. Just let me kiss you again.
His weight is on me. He is pushing me down. I turn my head away, but his mouth is on my neck, my breast. I am panting with desire, and then I feel, unexpectedly, a sudden rush of anger at the realization that he is no longer embracing me, but he is forcing me, holding me down as if I were some slut behind a haystack. He has my gown pulled up. He is pushing towards me. He is fumbling with his jerkin, his hose. In a moment it will be too late for complaints. I draw his dagger out of the scabbard, and at the hiss of the metal he rears back to his knees in shock.
Do you draw a blade on your king? Do you know treason when you do it, madam?
I draw a blade on me, on myself. I hold the sharp edge to my throat, and I see his eyes narrow. I swear, if you come one step closer, if you come 1 inch closer, I will cut my throat before you and bleed to death here on the ground where you would have dishonored me.
Play acting.
No, this is not a game to me, your grace. I cannot be your mistress.
I could have that knife off you in a second.
You forget I have 5 brothers. I have played with swords and daggers since I was a child. I will cut my throat before you reach me. He hesitates for a second, his own heart hammering in a dangerous mix of temper and lust. And then he masters himself, raises his hands in the gesture of surrender, and steps back. You win, and you may keep the dagger as a spoil of victory. Here. He unbuckles the scabbard and throws it down. Take the damned scabbard too, why don't you? The precious stones and the enamelled gold sparkle in the twilight. Never taking my eyes from him, I kneel and pick it up. I shall walk with you to your home. I shall see you safely to your door. I shake my head. No, I can't be seen with you. No one can know that we have met in secret. You walk ahead, then, and I will follow behind you like a page, like your servant, until I see you safe to your gate. Since you treat me like a fool, I shall serve you like a fool, and you can enjoy it." There is no speaking against his anger, so I nod and I turn to walk before him as he said I should. When we get to the end of the wood and we can be seen from the house, I pause and turn to him. "I will be safe from here." "I must beg you to forgive me for my force," he says stiffly. "I am perhaps too accustomed to getting my own way." "Will I not see you again?" "Never," he says simply, and bows slightly and walks away. "Your Grace!" I call, and he turns and pauses. "I would not part with you on bad terms. I hope that you can forgive me." "You have made a fool of me. You may congratulate yourself on being the first woman to do that, but you will be the last, and you will never make a fool of me again." I sink down into a curtsy, and I hear him turn and the swish of his cape on the bushes on either side of the path. I wait till I cannot hear him at all, and then I rise up and take the path to the footbridge over the river to where the ash tree is girdled with my mother's thread, and I take another loop in the thread and tie it tightly, and only then do I walk home, brooding in the thin moonlight.
Thank you for listening. The White Queen is available from all good bookstores from August the 18th. I do hope you'll enjoy it.